Hello, students. I wanted to reach out with a couple writing reminders. I'm kind of giving some similar feedback over and over again, so I wanted to review a couple things. In the last couple weeks, you've worked on summaries, and then you've been working on those informative essays. And one of the things I've noticed is that with the summaries, what you want to do is slow down and give a little context before you jump into the action. So before you start talking about a character, a setting, or a thing that took place, make sure you introduce the broader context. So for instance, if you're writing about chapter 3, then you would say, in chapter 3, a young boy named fill in the blank in the story, fill in the blank, learned an important lesson. First, and then you start to go into the action. So you would give a little background, and maybe even in that you say, learned an important lesson while traveling on the Oregon Trail. Okay, so you're giving a little setting so that you kind of want it to be set up in a way that your reader could have zero context of the story. They've never read the story and they don't know what you're writing about, and they could read your paragraph and fully understand it. So you want it to kind of stand alone. You give your reader enough background that they could come to your paragraph that you wrote without any of having ever read the story or any information about what you're writing about, and you would give them all the pieces that they need to understand the story. So don't assume that your reader knows anything. The second you start assuming that they have a bunch of background, then I've noticed that you guys jump in without introducing the characters, without giving the name, the setting, and even giving the title of the story. All right, so think about a newspaper article that would give a summary of a chapter or a book. They would assume that their reader doesn't know or hasn't already read the story. So they would slow down and give that background information for their reader before they jump into first this happened, then this happened, and in the end this happened. And really what you want your concluding sentence to be is kind of like, so what? What do we learn? What do we know? Why is that chapter important? Why is it included? And that kind of like, what do I take away from this chapter that's important? Okay, so that's some feedback about summaries here. And then when you moved on to the assessment where you were writing about the instincts, one of the things I noticed was that it was a challenge to stay on topic. So you want to make sure that you're always going back to what the prompt is asking you. And in this instance, with these assessments, when you were reading that longer article, the focus was on how instincts remain the same even as these new animal hybrids have been created. So if you're informing about the instincts, then each of your body paragraphs needs to go back to explaining exactly what the prompt is asking, which is how have the instincts remained similar even if there's different hybrids, or if we have these household animals that are descendants of these different breeds, what are the instincts that we still see? It's great to add some personal stories and some personal experience, but only after you've really used a lot of information from the article to frame what that whole body paragraph is about. So you might start out a body paragraph saying, one way that dogs have remained the same throughout the years is da 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 da. I noticed this in my own dog, da 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 da. The article stated in paragraph 6, and you would even name the article, right? This article titled, I can't remember off the top of my head, fill in the blank, but you give that background information, and even the author in the article blank by blank, she states that this, and this, and then you add that direct quote or you paraphrase. Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily give all those personal stories without referencing or connecting them back to the article and directly back to how that body paragraph talks about the topic, which is instincts have remained the same. So just remember that when you're writing your thesis, for your introduction, you want parts of that prompt in your thesis. So If the prompt is asking you to write about how instincts have remained the same, your last sentence of your intro might be something like, there are ways that domesticated cats and animals have stayed, there are ways that the instincts of domesticated animals have remained the same throughout the years. And so then your body paragraphs would go back to that and would continue to be examples of that. And then your conclusion could kind of be your own thoughts, takeaways, maybe another personal connection. I like that you guys sometimes have cute little questions or ways to kind of keep your reader thinking. Those things are all really fun and good strategies for your conclusions. But I just wanted to give some support for the organization and making sure that it's focused on what the prompt is asking you to write about. You don't really want it to just sound conversational, like you're just kind of talking. You really want to add those direct quotes. And if you add a quote, you want to give context, just like with the summary. You want to introduce the title of the article, the author, and then you want to frame the quote, and then you want to explain it. Don't assume that your reader knows how that quote supports your claim. Say something like, so as you can see, this quote reinforces that, dogs continue to howl at the moon, or whatever it might be. But once you put the quote there, you just do a short section of the quote and then you explain it. And so that's my third thing with the quotes, was please make sure, so the first is introduce it. The second is, use kind of a good short quote that you then explain. And the third thing is to make sure that they're not the whole paragraph. Your paragraph shouldn't be a quote. Your paragraph should have a direct quote that you use, but it should only be 2 or 3 sentences from the article, and then the rest of the paragraph is you explaining and unpacking that quote. Okay, so there's a few tips moving forward with your writing for both summaries and informative writing. We really want to zoom in on the topic. We want to provide enough context, and we want to think about how to use quotes in powerful ways. And I'm going to add a couple other video links that we posted in the fall as well from YouTube that are great tutorials if you need to review and have some refreshment on what those help to support with as well. Hope you guys have a great week. I'm back, so I will be hosting the Tuesday and Thursday live meets, and I look forward to seeing you if you have any questions.